Hello again. This is Patrick Wentz, and I'm going to talk about caliber confusion. Throughout World War II, both the United States and Britain furnished many 3-inch guns, and all of these 3-inch guns were 76 point had a barrel width of 76.2 millimeters. But none of the ammunition for the 3-inch guns could be interchanged between the different types of guns. I'm going to cover roughly 5 different kinds of guns that were used and throughout the war, and then I will show you the differences between them. Even though they had the same caliber, they were used for different purposes, which they were then used for different types of missions. So the first one I'm going to show you is, in the U.S., the granddaddy of them all, the 3-inch M1902 field gun. This was a relatively short-firing gun. It did not have to fire 20 or 30,000 feet up in the air and to shoot down airplanes, and it did not have to shoot at warships, 5, 6, 7, 8 miles out in the ocean. It was a field gun. It could be used against targets that the gunners could see in front of them. So its shell, of course, was 76.2 millimeters, which is 3 inches, but the shell length, so that was the caliber of the gun, 76.2. Its shell length was a very modest 273 millimeters. So that means it had a very short breech back here for the shell to sit in. So let's go to the next one. In 1942, it was already becoming quite evident that our standard 37 millimeter anti-tank gun was not going to hack it. So the U.S. wanted to upgrade to a 3-inch gun for anti-tank support. So this 3-inch M5 anti-tank U.S. gun would, of course, had a much larger breech, fired the same 3-inch 76.2, fired a 3-inch 76.2 millimeter shell, but the shell casing was 585 millimeters long. This is because they had to pack a bunch of powder in the shell casing in order to get the shell itself up to a significant velocity, probably right around 2,800 feet per second, in order to knock out a German or Japanese tank. So here you go. The first two had the exact same caliber, 76.2, but they had completely different shell casings, which were 585 millimeters long. So here's another, a little bit more confusing. Here is another anti-tank gun. This one is called the 76 millimeter gun M1 anti-tank. So, was it 76 millimeters? No. It was actually 76.2 millimeters again, but its shell casing was 539 millimeters. This was a much lighter version of the 3-inch gun, and it was used on tanks such as this M18 Hellcat anti-tank destroyer. So basically the 76 millimeter gun M1 was a lightened version of the 3-inch gun M5. But it used a different shell, just a little bit lighter shell. So let's talk about the British here. Whoops. To throw even more confusion onto the fire, the British used a quick firing. That means the shell and shell casing are one piece, 3-inch, 20 CWT, which is just the weight of the barrel, anti-aircraft gun, British. Because the shell had to travel so far up in the air to knock down approaching bombers or any other attacking warplanes, it used a humongously big shell casing of 420 millimeters in length, but used the 76.2 caliber again. And of course, the last gun I'm going to talk about is the Ordnance quick-firing 17-pounder anti-tank British. This shell here, so once again, they had to knock out, the British had the same problems that the Americans did. They had to knock out heavier German tanks, so they came up with a real doozy of an anti-tank gun. It was 76.2 millimeters for the caliber, but the shell casing length was 583 millimeters. So it had a huge breach and shot a projectile very, very, very quickly in order to knock out a tank. So you ask yourself, why were they all 76.2 millimeters or 3 inch? And why did they have different names? So instead of having, I've talked about 5 different guns, so let's talk about this. Instead of having 5 different manufacturing facilities, each country could just have one manufacturing facility where they knock out the gun barrels for these different weapons, whether it's an anti-tank, a field gun, or an anti-aircraft gun manufacturing facility. They all knocked out the same barrels, and all they had to do was attach a different breech to the barrel, so it made manufacturing much simpler. In order, and if you would go back and see, so this one is called the quick-firing 17-pounder. We had the 3-inch quick-firing. We had the 76 millimeter, which is a complete lie. We had the 3-inch gun M5. We had the 3-inch M1902. They all had different names so that when the receiving unit received their ammunition, the boxes and however they are transported would be stamped with the kind of gun that they're going to. So it would be a 3-inch M1902 field gun ammunition, and the shell would be stamped 76.2 times 273 millimeters. So this would be so that everybody got the correct ammunition. So, was it really confusing? Yes. Was it unwarrantedly confusing? No, because there was a method behind their madness, and in the end, it made sure that the right ammunition got to the right gun crew on the battlefield, so that the gun crew had what they needed in order to knock down an airplane, another tank, or shoot howitzer ammunition at the enemy. All right, so I hope this has cleared up a little bit of a confusing subject for everybody, and everybody have a great day. All right, bye-bye.